Right now, somewhere in your wallet, there's a piece of paper that used to be worth something real. Not centuries ago. Within living memory, you could walk into a bank, hand over that paper, and walk out with actual gold. Not a promise, not a number on a screen. Metal, weight, value you could hold in your hand. And then, on a single Sunday night in August 1971, they took that away, not with a vote, not with a debate, just a televised address while most Americans were finishing dinner. Here's the strange part. Almost nobody noticed. Nobody protested. Nobody marched. And 50 years later, the system they built that night is still running. And it's quietly costing you every single day. So the question isn't what happened. The question is why, though? Why would the most powerful country on earth cut the link between its money and anything real? And why did the rest of the world just let it? To understand it, you have to rewind. World War II was still burning, but the Allies could already see the end. So 44 nations sent representatives to a quiet resort town in New Hampshire called Bretton Woods. Their job, redesign the entire global money system for the world that would come after the war. The most famous economist alive, John Maynard Keynes, led the British delegation. He pitched a single currency for the whole planet. He called it the bancor. Too radical. Rejected. Instead, the United States, now the creditor to the entire planet, sitting on roughly 2/3 of the world's gold, made a promise. A simple one. The US dollar would be locked to gold at $35 an ounce. Every other currency would be pegged to the dollar, and it was a two-way promise. Any country holding dollars could come to America, hand them over, and get gold back. No limit. No questions asked. This wasn't just policy. It was a tombstone for the monetary chaos of the 1930s. And for about 25 years, it worked. Until it didn't. Here's where the cracks start. For the whole world to use dollars, dollars had to be everywhere. Countries needed them to trade. Central banks needed them as reserves. So America had to keep shipping dollars out, running deficits, spending abroad, flooding the global system with currency. But the more dollars went overseas, the more countries could turn around, walk up to Fort Knox and say, "We'd like our gold now." This is the Triffin dilemma, named after the economist Robert Triffin, who spotted it back in 1959. The system had a flaw built in at birth. To supply the world with dollars, America had to slowly undermine faith in its own money. The 1960s pushed it to the breaking point. The Vietnam War cost billions. So did Lyndon Johnson's Great Society programs. America printed money to pay for both. Inflation started to climb. And then Charles de Gaulle, the French president, never a fan of American power, looked at the math and acted. France began cashing in its dollars for American gold and hauling it back across the Atlantic, as the story goes, even sending warships to carry it home. Other allies started lining up behind them. By 1971, America's gold reserves had more than halved. Fort Knox was running low. The system wasn't slowly cracking anymore. It was failing, fast. First country to the window got gold. Everyone after risked getting nothing. August 13th, 1971. Richard Nixon gathered 15 advisors at Camp David for what may be the most secret meeting in modern American economic history. In the room, Treasury Secretary John Connally, Fed Chairman Arthur Burns, and a young official named Paul Volcker, who'd later become a legend in his own right. For 3 days, they argued. Nobody outside knew, not even the State Department. Connally, a blunt former governor of Texas, was the decisive voice. His most famous line from that era, later quoted in Volcker's own memoir, was essentially this: "The dollar is our currency, but it's your problem." Sunday, August 15th, 9 p.m. Nixon goes on national television and announces three things. 1. The U.S. is temporarily closing the gold window. No one can trade dollars for gold anymore. 2. A 90-day freeze on wages and prices. 3. A 10% tax on every imported good. That word, temporarily, was a polite lie. Everyone in that room knew it. There was no going back. Nixon called it the new economic policy. The world gave it a more honest name, the Nixon Shock, a 27-year promise that a dollar could always become gold, no limit, vanished in one Sunday night speech. No referendum, no vote in Congress, no constitutional amendment. One president, a handful of advisors, 3 days at Camp David. And here's what happened next. Gold, frozen at $35 an ounce for nearly 3 decades, started to rise, and rise, and rise. By 1980, it hit $850, more than 24 times higher. Inflation exploded. The 1970s brought double-digit inflation to America for the first time in peacetime history. The money in your savings account lost value every day you didn't spend it. Gas, food, housing, all of it climbed. By the end of the decade, the dollar had lost more than half its buying power. And here's the strangest part. Almost no one fought it. No mass protests. No political movement. No party ran on bringing back the gold standard. Americans watched the speech, turned off the TV, and went to bed. Why, though? Partly because almost nobody understood what had just happened. Gold was abstract to most people. They'd never actually traded dollars for it. To them, a dollar was still a dollar. Same paper, same face of Washington, same value, right up until it quietly wasn't. And here's where it reaches you. Before 1971, your money had an anchor. Physical, real, sitting underground. Every dollar in circulation stood for a tiny slice of something that actually existed. After August 15th, 1971, that anchor was gone. The dollar became, and every currency on earth soon followed, a piece of paper a government promises is worth something. That's it. From that moment, the entire global money system runs on one thing: trust. Not trust in gold, not trust in math. Trust that governments won't print too much and will always pay their debts. Since 1971, the U.S. has created money at a pace with no precedent in human history. The national debt has gone from under $400 billion in 1971 to over $30 trillion today. Inflation has quietly eaten away at savings. House prices have outrun wages. College costs many times more. Retirement keeps drifting out of reach. Now, economists argue about how much of that is 1971 itself, and how much is everything that came after. Oil shocks, globalization, decades of policy. That argument is real, and the single villain story is too clean to be the whole truth. But the change underneath it isn't in dispute. After that night, money stopped being anchored to anything but belief. And a system with no hard limit tends to drift in one direction. And most people still have no idea what August 15th, 1971 even was. So the real question was never, what happened? It's this: if your entire money system can be changed forever in a single weekend, with no vote, no protest, and almost no one understanding it, then whose money is it really? That system is still running. Same logic, same dependence on trust. That doesn't mean everything's about to collapse. It means you should at least know the game you're playing. Your money isn't anchored to metal. It's anchored to a story. And that story is written by people you never voted for. Maybe it's time to ask the next question. And that's why. New question drops Tuesday. And again, Friday. Keep asking.